Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, coming to you live from our studio here at Adisawe Kanda in Accra. Coming up this evening, gold dealership firm Rafmo Ghana Limited fights back at gold board after the board placed a 4 million Ghana cedi bounty on the head of 4 alleged gold smugglers. We have details of that for you in a moment. Later in the bulletin, NPP stalwart Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo takes a swipe at government, blaming the fight against illegal mining on leadership failure. Plus, a new IEA report or poll suggests that 9 out of every 10 Ghanaians support election of metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives. We'll tell you why. Details of all these plus business and sports coming up for the next 1 hour. Do stay with us. Let's settle for the details, but before that, let's bring you the news summaries with Christabel.
Thank you very much, Martin. And 5 Ghanaians are to be given diplomatic passports to champion African cohesion and integration as part of efforts to enhance their work of African unity. And these are Wodimaya Denta Mwating, Rocky Dawuni, Anita Resking, and Ibrahim Mahama. Villarreal midfielder Thomas Partey on Wednesday appeared in a London court and pleaded not guilty to charges of rape and sexual assault involving 3 women. The Ghanaian midfielder pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of rape and 1 charge of sexual assault when he appeared in Southwark Crown Court. The alleged offences took place between 2021 and 2022, when the 32-year-old regularly played in Premier League. He was charged 4 days ago, 4 days after leaving the North London club following the expiration of his contract at the end of June. The Ministry of Transport has announced plans to resolve grievances of railway workers who have not received salaries and other entitlements for a year. The Railway Workers Union of Ghana on September 16 threatened a nationwide strike and peaceful picketing on September 30 to protest the government's failure to pay salaries and entitlements owed them. However, speaking during the government accountability series, Transport Minister John Nikbe said engagement with the Finance Ministry is ongoing to address the situation. And finally, the Ministry of Interior has declared Monday, September 22, 2025, a public holiday to commemorate this year's Founders' Day. The holiday, which honors the birthday of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, falls on a Sunday this year. In a statement signed by Minister for Interior Muntaka Mubarak, it was announced that President John Dramani Mahama has, by executive instruments, directed the nationwide observance of the holiday. The decision aligns with the recent 2025 amendment to the Public Holidays and Commemorative Days Act, which stipulates that holidays falling on a weekend are to be observed on the following Monday. And this can be found on our website, 3news.com. Do well to visit there. Martin, over to you.
Thank you. Let's settle for the details of our stories now. And the dealership gold firm Rafmo Ghana Limited has denied any involvement in illegal gold trade business in Ghana. It has also criticized the inclusion of its owner, Rafiq Mohammed Nandoli, in connection with the allegation of gold smuggling. On Tuesday, Gold Board announced the arrest of 3 suspects allegedly involved in gold smuggling and operating without license. Gold Board further placed a 4 million Ghana cedi bounty on 4 suspected gold smugglers. The Gold Board stated that the 4 suspects, including the alleged mastermind who was being pursued by the police and the Gold Board task force, were Mohammed Afsal Puthalan, Abdul Karim, Mohammed Nadoli Rafiq, and Sadiq Abubakar. In the letter intercepted by 3FM, the lawyers for Mohammed Nadoli Rafiq say, amongst other things, that 1, they have not purchased any gold from NK Benak Enterprise at Takwa or elsewhere in the past 2 months, as alleged. They are neither the purchasers nor the owners of the 9.2 kilogram of gold recently seized by the Gold Board, and they have not authorized any person or group of persons to purchase gold on their behalf since ceasing operations in Ghana. So that's just by way of an update on the debacle between the Gold Board and some individuals they are pursuing over the some malpractices having to do with the purchase of gold in Ghana. If you go to our website, you find the details, the back and forth from the Gold Board and also this particular institution in question, Raffmore Ghana Limited. Away from that to politics and politically related matters now, and the New Patriotic Party's stalwart, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, and former diplomat, is tonight blaming political interference, corruption, and selective justice in the fight against illegal mining or galamsey. He blamed the problem on the leadership failure for allowing the practice to thrive. He argued that the Ghana Armed Forces are fully capable of stopping galamsey within a week if they are allowed to operate without political obstruction. He has therefore urged the government to declare galamsey a national emergency, depoliticize enforcement, and hold all individuals accountable regardless of their status. He issued a stern warning against galamsey, describing it as a cancer destroying Ghana. According to the statement that he released, galamsey has turned once pristine rivers like the Pra, Birim, and Ankobra rivers into lifeless streams of mud and poison. The widespread water pollution has rendered many communities' primary water source unsafe, forcing residents to rely on contaminated toxic water. The destruction extends to Ghana's fertile farmlands, which are being scarred, by reckless mining operations, threatening the country's agricultural backbone. The release asserts that the continuous use of galamsey especially in our water bodies is not safe and is as a result of lack of solution but a failure of leadership to take decisive action on that. Let's go to the phone lines now and speak to former senior UN governance advisor Professor Bafo Ajimandia, who has joined us for a conversation on this particular issue about the fight against galamsey, government's latest position, and then the incessant call for a state of emergency. Hello, Prof. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on 3FM.
My pleasure.
I'm sure that in the early days when this issue started about the havoc galamsey was causing in our forest reserves and our water bodies, you were one of the key individuals that said that some concrete action needed to be taken to halt this unfortunate development. We've gone full circle. There's a new government in place, and they are saying that measures they've rolled out are sufficient enough for now, and they are still monitoring, and in due time, if need be, a state of emergency will be declared. Where do you sit on this particular issue, and what's your thought on it?
Well, let me tell you, I think as a nation, our leaders have been dragging their feet on this matter for a very long time. As you know, galamsey came into national focus somewhere between 2012, 2015 or thereabouts. And that time, I think President Mahama was power, and he made some statements and even flew over the area and informed the whole nation how serious this matter was. So once the new government came into being, that's NPP's Akufo-Addo, you know, there was a lot of pressure on him to take some steps to arrest this national menace. But what we know is that there was foot dragging also, even though occasionally there were some attempts, including sending soldiers under special names, Operation this, Operation that. But in the end, we saw that it didn't really end the operation, the galamsey menace. As we speak, it seems like the problem has gotten out of hand. A lot of these galamseyers are fully armed, and many more people have enrolled in this illegal business. And what is worse, both political parties have been party to this galamsey. We know that these people in politics, in the security sector, have all been part of it. And I believe that has been the main problem for none of our two governments being able to arrest the situation. And as we speak again, I think voices have been raised, some threatening protest marches. The Bishops' Council or Conference of the Catholic Church has issued a statement a few days ago, and many more voices are raised. So I know there's a lot of pressure on the current government. And I think what has provoked this was the recent press conference by the president, where he appeared a little bit sluggish in facing up to the concerns that a lot of people have. And that, I think, is pressuring the government to come up with a much more stronger measures. So I'm personally pleased with the latest announcement by Jubilee House that, in fact, they are going to set up permanent military either bases or spots in this area. A kind of an approach that will avoid or at least minimize any violence. So I think the Galampayers are fully determined. Secondly, we also know that people are taking advantage of the fact that unemployment is a problem in the country, and therefore they are hiding behind this illegality to say that, look, without this they have no jobs. And it seems like government at times buy into that because they are afraid if they step in forcefully, that might release hundreds of thousands of people on the streets. But I think the government should all the same go forward, because the cost of this damage we are doing is far much greater than otherwise. Because as you know, some people in the central region do not have running water anymore because the water company is not able to process the water. It's gone beyond repairs. I know some friends who come to these areas to pack bottles of water into their homes in the central region. So ultimately, if we are not careful, this whole country and our water is going to be a big issue as we move on. So I think the earlier we address this matter, the better for all of us and the future generations here to come.
Right, Prof. I mean, you've touched on very key issues that I would like to unpack. But before we do that, what is your take on the residents that live within these areas? It looks as though there's always the call on central government or a government that technically is sitting in Accra to be taking some of these decisions on their behalf and take action. But the citizens there, out of whom these illegal mining perpetrators are acting, are more or less just looking on. Can't the citizens in these areas do anything?
This, I tell you, my brother, this is an excellent question. Excellent question, because the problem we are facing is also attributable to the way we have centralized governance in the country. Our governance is so much centralized that people outside the center feel almost powerless and hopeless when it comes to such challenges. We have district assemblies that do not function except when prompted by the central government, only because the president appoints the DCEs and the MCEs. Okay? So they appear powerless unless empowered by the central government. That accounts for the reason why, really in this country, people do not act until orders are sent from Accra. And that is hurting the way we govern ourselves. I agree with you that this could have been local issues that could have been addressed by local governments, that is the district assembly. But because these assemblies are weak, and even if they have to act, they have to get instructions from Accra, nothing happens. And that, for me, is one of the weakest links in our governance structure in the country. So that, for me, is the issue. The councils, the assemblies simply feel powerless. And I think that should inform the efforts to review the Constitution to see how we can begin to strengthen the district assembly so that local cases like this, the assemblies can step in and take the needful measures.
Right. And Prof, my final question would be the the one you touched on having to do with the fact that local economies, unfortunately, have been built around these illegal mining or galamsey activities. Coincidentally, today I heard a man speaking from Takwa, and he was lamenting how they have to travel far and wide to get drinking water for their homes.
Right.
But also said that even they realize how the local economy is booming because of how these galamsey activities are widespread. So if the calls for a state of emergency is taken serious by the president, and he actually does declare a state of emergency, the number of people who may have to be out of work for some time would come up for conversation again. That dovetails into your point of, they say that there isn't any job they can do. That is why they are involved in this illegality. So it looks as though it's a very slippery issue, and there are economic concerns here as well. What would your best advice be in terms of approaching it very seriously, but making sure that people also survive?
It's a very complex, and I don't really blame the previous president for hesitating to take strong measures. Because any measures you take is going to create unseen challenges. Some very well seen, like the unemployment. If in fact we have, I don't know how many, there's no statistics on how many people are involved in galamsey, but if I assume that we have, say, 100,000 or 50,000 people doing this, it means you are going to drive them away from what over the years has been their main source of sustenance. So that's a challenge, okay? But I think the idea of the state of emergency must be weighed carefully. The government can go in with soldiers without necessarily declaring state of emergency. Now I'll explain. I've spoken to certain very senior military people who says that there is what we call declaring a certain zone to be security zone. In other words, the government can go in there with soldiers and ring fence the critical areas and just declare a state of security zone. That will not require parliamentary approval. That may not require suspension of certain rights of citizens. That will not require all those kinds of implications that we are all afraid of. But the soldiers can go in and gradually cordon the area off and deal with these galamseys and get rid of them from that particular area. So there's no alternative to the declaration of a state of emergency. That is to say, we can declare certain areas to be security zones, and that will enable the soldiers to immediately ring-fence those areas and then begin to clear the place. So I think we must have some kind of an approach that will balance what we expect to have, our needs, with the needs of local people, as you say, because the local economy can be destroyed overnight. But that should not deter us from taking these measures, because frankly, if we are not careful, in the coming years, the coming decades, the next generation will be looking back and will be blaming this generation for leaving nothing for them to survive. And I think that's more dangerous, not to even talk about the forest that you are destroying and all. So I think there must be that kind of level-headed approach that will gradually get rid of these people. So if you ask me about the state of emergency, my alternative rather would be declaring security zones, creating security zones and getting the soldiers to go in there to do their job.
Prof, thank you so much for your time this evening.
My pleasure.
We've been speaking to Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah, who is the former senior UN governance advisor, sharing his thoughts on this conversation, very crucial national conversation about galamsey, its impact on water and our forest reserves, and the fact that as we speak, some regions in and around, especially the central and western region, some communities are already struggling to get drinking water, which is an everyday necessity, and have to travel for miles to get just a glass of water or a bottle of water to drink. So it tells you the seriousness, the impact of Galamsey is having. But on the back of that, leadership of the country say that they have also put in the right measures to ensure that we're able to deal with the issue head on. So we will keep our fingers crossed and be counting the days to see what else can be done regarding the fight against this illegal mining canker. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're going on to some other stories having to do with election of MMDCEs and what Ghanaians make of it.
Majority of Ghanaians prefer the election of Metropolitan, Municipal and District Chief Executives, MMDCEs, over other methods of filling the position. The citizenry also prefer the election of MMDCEs on a non-partisan basis. The findings of a poll by the Institute of Economics Affairs, IEA, have revealed. The poll, conducted in all 16 regions of Ghana between August 15 and August 26, 2025, suggested that most of the people polled seemed to lack confidence in political parties when it came to local level elections. President John Dramani Mahama recently made a call for the election of MMDCEs on a non-partisan basis, in line with the promise in the National Democratic Congress NDC 2024 Reset in Ghana manifesto. In 2019, the then President Nana Akufo-Addo made attempts to amend Article 55 Section 3 and 243 Section 1 to respectively allow for political party participation in local level elections and to make the position of MMDCEs an elective one. And we'll be going over to the phone.
Certainly so. And let's engage the thoughts of Dr. Frederick Odro, who is a governance expert, is joined us on the phone for a quick chat. Doc, a very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
What would you say the specific questions were to these respondents? Was it that, would you like to vote for your MMDCE? And then they said yes, or some said no. Was that how forward it was, or there was some kind of background before the questions were asked?
Well, I mean, sincerely, I'm not privy to the questionnaire that was used to gather the information. However, this is not a new thing. I mean, CDD has also previously led some of these data collection previously. And they all came to the fact that Ghanaians, by and large, would prefer directly electing their MMDCs. It was also, as indicated, it has been part of the work. We go back as far back as 2012, thereabouts, under the Professor Piaggio Constitutional Review Commission's work. That was one of the key things that came up, but not much was done about it. Then, fast forward to the 2016 election, the MPP promised they will go for the direct election of MMDCs, but then they wanted it on a different method, that is a partisan line. So, I mean, study after study has indicated that the broad masses of Ghanaians will prefer directly electing their own MMDC rather than continue with the current system of the president appointing them and they getting the approval of their assembly members and all that.
Right.
So I believe it is long overdue. It is something that Ghanaians have indicated they want long ago. It's not a new thing.
Certainly so, and I recall that even in 2019, there was a referendum.
Referendum.
Yes, and clearly the interest is there. Majority want it done, but as a governance expert yourself, would you advise that it be done on partisan basis? Because that was the concern raised in 2019, where people said that our politics in general was derogatory enough in terms of how we have played it. So if we are taking it to the very local level, that was going to be problematic, where people that live next door to each other, probably because of partisan differences, may not be able to coexist. So this should be done devoid of political party involvement. Where do you stand on this? Which is the best approach you'd advise?
Well, personally, I differ from that view. I do not think partisan politics per se will create that kind of challenge for us. However, it looks as if we don't have a consensus as a country on whether we should do it on partisan level or we should go on non-partisan. Whichever way we want to go by it, there are examples by different countries that can guide us. I mean, if we want to go the partisan way, the Kenyan example is very good for us. And Kenya adapted this after challenges to their democracy, and they felt the need to go for direct election of their governors. They choose to call them governors. And they did it on partisan level, and it is working well for them. Nigeria doesn't offer us a very good example because there's too much interference and you can't trust the system they operate sometimes. But the South African experience also allows for a mix of direct elections, not on partisan level per se, in addition to also going for a system where you can even select technocrats to lead assemblies. So these are all there for us. If we really mean it, we can sit down as a country, consider all options that are available, and adapt for us what can best work for us. But there is a general admission that the current system has failed us. It has not given us the benefit that we were hoping to get. So I believe we need to change the system. There must be a direct election, but whether we'll go partisan or we'll go non-partisan will depend on what the kind of consensus we can build as a country.
Right. And my final question would be on the public education. Do you think or believe that people are aware of the importance of MMDCEs, and can they actually function without central government involvement or liaison between the two, institutions, central government and the local administrators? Do people know how important they are, and can their roles play out effectively without any sort of assistance or quote-unquote interference from the very top?
I believe as a country, our understanding or even our appreciation of democracy is quite low. Because the way we conduct our democratic practices in this country leaves much to be desired. Today we are talking about monetization of our politics and all that. We want to practice a multi-party democracy, but people feel their parties must pay them to support the party. People don't even see the need to even contribute towards the finances of their political party, but on the other hand, think it's the parties that must support them. People believe in the fact that let me go and fight for my party to be in power, and then my party must find a way of looking after me. It is not about I believe in the ideology of this party, so I'm supporting it. It's all about bread and butter issues directly. What do I get out of them? So generally, we need to up our game relative to letting our people understand the essence of governance as a whole. And local governance, our appreciation of local governance, and especially how the work that assemblies do and how we ought to structure our assembly system, all those things, we need a lot of education. But I think the education we need as a people should go beyond just about local governance. It should even go about how our governance system works. Well, if we choose multi-party democracy, how it should work and all that. We need to educate ourselves about that, because sometimes you listen to people and the demands they make, what we expect of our members of parliament, what we expect of our president, what we expect of our district assemblies, and you ask yourself, do these people really understand what democracy is about, what the kind of system of governance we have, whether we understand it. We need to educate ourselves about these things.
Certainly so. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Dr. Frederick Odro. He is a governance expert and was helping put in perspective this research by the IEA regarding whether or not Ghanaians would want to vote for their MMDCEs on partisan lines or non-partisan lines, and clearly that has been the bone of contention for several years now, and he shared his personal perspective on it or opinion on it. But from the recent poll conducted by the Institute of Economic Affairs, it looks as though majority of Ghanaians, just like we've always known, prefer to elect their MMDCEs rather than they being appointed from the very top or the central government, that is. This is still Hot Edition 3FM 92.7. Let's go to the office of the president now.
President John Dramani Mahama has said Ghana's democracy could collapse if it does not deliver development in the form of roads, schools, hospitals, and jobs. He said surveys continue to show that many young Ghanaians would prefer military rule if democracy fails to address their needs. Speaking at the 2025 Democracy Dialogue in Accra today, President Mahama described the trend as disturbing. Take a listen.
And so, to renew democracy, we must do certain things. Of course, the first one is that we must strengthen institutions, independent courts, parliaments, and our electoral bodies. The second is that we must deliver development, because democracy without development, democracy without roads, democracy without schools, hospitals, and jobs will always be at risk. The third, we must educate our citizens. For us, Thomas Sankara said, and I quote, he said, "A soldier without political education or ideological training is a potential criminal." The same is true of leadership without ethical grounding. The fourth, we must protect media and civic space. A free press is democracy's immune system. We must also build regional solidarity, because the fall of democracy in one nation weakens democracy in all other nations.
That was President John Dramani Mahama speaking there. And the Youth Employment Agency, YEA, and the Interior Minister has come to an agreement to recruit 30 to 40% of beneficiaries of the community police assistance and fire service assistance. This was announced at a ceremony to hand over the trained police assistant personnel to the Ghana Police Service in Ablikuma North in the Greater Accra region today. There's more in the following reports. Some 112 newly trained recruits made of fire service assistants and community police assistants were handed over to the Ghana Police Service. In attendance was the commander of the Odoko Police, ACP Kofi Sapong, the newly elected Member of Parliament, Irabina Oben, and regional directors of the Youth Employment Agency, as well as the Municipal Chief Executive, Kalamu Adamu Musa. Accra Regional Director of the YEA, Alhaji Mohammed Judah, said the government has taken a decision to consider first 30 to 40 of YEA beneficiaries.
The procedure and some policy that we have agreed with the Interior Minister, which the President himself has accepted, and our CEO, President signed on it, that when we are going to recruit police and fire, at least 30 to 40% should come from CPA and the fire.
Member of Parliament for Ablikuma North, Irabina Oben, on her part, said the government's resetting agenda is right on course.
As observers or spectators, but to assist our police or services with their duties. I have no doubt that the training you have gone through and have excelled and have passed through has enabled you all to serve Ablikuma North.
She said a lot more people will benefit from her constituency. Municipal Chief Executive Adamu Musa said the recruitment is a stopgap measure to provide employment to beneficiaries.
Please let's take note that under YEA you are not under permanent employment. It is a stopgap measure to create employment for you so that it will transit you into the regular service. You have 2 years on your contract to serve. It is our belief that by the time your 2-year contract expires, you all, a good number of you, will join either the Ghana Police Service or the Fire Service.
That was a news desk report there. The minority leader, Alexander Apenyo-Marking, is calling on the youth to take an active role in the fight against illegal mining. He noted that political leaders often fall back on rhetoric and blame shifting when addressing the issue, an approach that has hindered meaningful progress. Apenyo-Marking believes it's time for young people to take the lead and drive real change in tackling the menace. Take a listen.
As we dream together, let us also confront the dangers that threaten our future. None is more urgent than the menace of illegal mining, otherwise known as galamsey. This destructive practice is stealing your future. It is robbing farmers of fertile soil, poisoning the water of our children, and destroying the environment you and I must inherit. If we allow galamsey to continue unchecked, then we are complicit in selling tomorrow for today's greed. I therefore challenge you, the youth, to be at the forefront of this fight, to speak up, protect our rivers, and to insist on sustainable ways of harnessing Ghana's natural resources. Enough of the political rhetoric and blame game. My earliest memory of this galamsey is when Honorable Setekwe appeared before the Finance Committee in 2015. At the time, the Cocoa Board was under the Ministry of Finance, and he came to address us, the Finance Committee, on why cocoa production was going down. And he shared with us the unfortunate story of galamsey. When President Akufo-Addo came into office, he even publicly declared that he was putting his presidency on the line. When our friends were in opposition, they were very loud on their desire to fight galamsey. I think enough of the rhetorics. The situation is real. In my own constituency, we cannot get safe water to drink because of galamsey. And I know many people who are going through difficult times because of this. Let us fight this together, else there will be no Ghana for us.
You just heard the minority leader, Alexander Apenyo-Marking. The Executive Secretary of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, Dr. Shafiq Suleiman, says the proposals presented by service providers for upward tariff adjustments are for critical investments. This follows concerns from Ghanaians that the percentages are too high for both water and electricity. The PURC boss spoke on Agenda on TV3 last night with Martin Asiedu.
So the utilities made tariff proposals to the commission. So the tariff proposals are more or less, they are telling us that if the tariffs are adjusted to this level, that's when they would be able to break even and make some margins for themselves. So Doc,
let's take it one by one. You're saying that you talked about investment proposals that they submitted,
yes,
as well as tariffs.
So they submitted investment proposals. We considered them, various projects that they think they would undertake to lead to what we call quality of service improvement within the provision of the utilities. We considered all those projects, and then we approved. So we classified the projects into short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and then we also classified them into critical projects. So we selected the projects, and we we indicated back to them that these projects are accepted. So we call something called regulated asset base. So these are the projects we use to develop or set the regulated asset base. We send it back to them. They capture those regulated asset base in their project or their tariffs, and then they arrive at a particular tariff that if we grant them, the PRC grants them, or the Ghanaian consumer grants them, they'll be able to recover the cost of those projects throughout.
Okay, so I think you have indirectly answered my question partially. You're saying that the tariff adjustments that they have asked for, they eventually, if they are granted, they will go into those projects that they submitted to you earlier.
Actually, so they've made tariff proposals based on the investment projects that they've submitted to us.
Doc, are you able to share with us the proposals, the ones particularly you call critical?
Yes.
The reason you found it necessary to present these proposals to us?
There are about 7 utilities that presented their investments, a lot of them. Like for instance, Gridco has submitted over 18 projects, and we considered most of them. The main one is the Eastern Corridor, or Eastern Corridor electrification, not great extension or great service improvement. The transmission line within the Eastern Corridor has been giving a lot of low current to communities around OT. Salaga, for instance, it is being stated that in communities like Salaga, it is a luxury for them to actually get ice block. And it is extremely difficult for them to actually even on a fan, not to talk of owning any generator to even run any agro-processing activity.
That was Executive Secretary of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Dr. Shafiq Suleiman. Just before we go, the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Dr. Agnes Momolati, says her ministry will ensure strict monitoring of the school feeding program. In an unannounced visit to Bawi cluster of schools in the Gas South municipality, the minister emphasized that the program goes beyond providing meals, insisting that food must meet nutritional standards and be served in hygienic conditions. There's more in the following reports.
The minister was accompanied by the National Coordinator for the Ghana School Feeding Program, Hajia Fati Fogo, and the Municipal Chief Executive for Bawe. She commended the National Coordinator of the program, teachers, and the Ghana South Municipal Assembly for their commitment. She also assured that her ministry, together with the School Feeding Secretariat, will continue conducting unannounced spot checks nationwide to uphold quality standards. She called for innovations in the provision, describing as part of the reset agenda. According to her, the school feeding program is not only about feeding children, but also about the quality of food and how it is served.
You have been listening to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama very well. Right from the beginning, he's indicated that he wants to ensure the quality of the meals. Even if it is a spoon you are feeding the child, the nutritional value should be good enough to build the child. And so we are looking at the holistic development of the child. And that is why I'm saying that the innovation we met here goes a long way to support the reset agenda. One, it is not just the children eating, but you are looking at the quality of the food and then how hygienic it's also being served.
Her visit forms part of broader government efforts to improve efficiency, accountability, and impact within the school feeding program.
Well, that was a News Desk report here on 3FM 92.7. It's still Hot Edition. We'll be back with business and sports. Bismarck Awusa is standing by.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Coming up tonight, Bank of Ghana slashes policy rate by 350 basis points to 21.5% as Monetary Policy Committee forecasts further decline in inflation by year end. We'll hear from Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama. I am Bismarck Awusa. This headline story and others lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has reduced the policy rate by 350 basis points to 21.5% from 25%, marking one of the steepest cuts in recent years. Announcing the decision at the 126th press briefing in Accra, Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama said the move reflects optimism that inflation will continue to ease in the coming months. He noted that headline inflation is projected to fall within the medium-term target band of 8% plus or minus 2 by the end of the fourth quarter.
Given the current state of macroeconomic conditions, the view of the committee was that inflation will continue to ease in the near term. And in the outlook, headline inflation is expected to drop to within the medium-term target of 8 plus or minus 2% by the end of the fourth quarter. However, the possible upward review of utility tariffs could exert some price pressures in the medium term. Notwithstanding this, maintenance of an appropriate monetary policy stance, strong sterilization efforts, ongoing fiscal consolidation, and adequate reserve buffers should sustain the disinflation process. Given these considerations, the committee, that is the MPC, by a majority decision, voted to lower the monetary policy rate by 350 basis points to 21.5%.
Meanwhile, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama, added that the bank will continue to closely monitor developments in the economy and take further policy actions if necessary to sustain the disinflation process. Moving on, producer price inflation for August 2025 has fallen to 3%, the lowest in nearly 2 years. The Ghana Statistical Service attributes the sustained decline mainly to easing prices in the manufacturing sector. The following 3 Business News Desk report has the details. Ghana's year-on-year producer price inflation dropped to 3% in August 2025, down from 3.6% in July. This represents a 0.6 percentage point decline and marks the 7th consecutive month of easing prices at the factory gate. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, the August figure is the lowest recorded since November 2023, reflecting a slowdown in cost build-up for goods and services. On a month-on-month basis, producer inflation stood at 2.1%. The mining and quarrying sector, which carries the heaviest weight of 43.7%, saw a marginal increase from 4.6 to 4.9%. However, manufacturing, which contributes about 35% to the index, fell sharply from 3.2 to 1.6%, accounting for the bulk of the decline. Accommodation and food services also remained in negative territory, with inflation dropping further to minus 3.1%. The Statistical Service is urging businesses to capitalize on the lower inflation by cutting costs, boosting margins, and reinvesting in productivity. It further advised government to continue supporting industry with targeted tax reliefs and infrastructure investment, while households are encouraged to plan spending wisely and build reserves during this period of relative price stability. And that was a 3 Business News Desk report on Ghana's producer price inflation hitting 3% in August 2025, the lowest since November 2023. And that brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Thanks for your company. Ore Kwampofu is here for sports. Please stay.
good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on Treve 92.7. My name is Oreku Ampofo. We start off from our first story where Villarreal midfielder Thomas Partey on Wednesday appeared in a London court and pleaded not guilty to charges of rape and sexual assault involving 3 women. The Ghanaian midfielder pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of rape and 1 charge of sexual assault when he appeared at the Southwark Crown Court. The alleged offences took place between 2021 and 2022 when the 32-year-old regularly played in the Premier League. The former Arsenal midfielder was released on bail ahead of his trial, which was slated for November 2nd, 2026, and is due to take between 6 and 8 weeks. Or to some more news, Antoine Semenyo has been awarded AFC Bournemouth Michael Matthew Jewell's Player of the Month for August following a stellar start to the 2025-2026 Premier League season. The Ghanaian forward played a pivotal role in helping Andoni Iraola's side make an impressive start to the campaign. Semenyo kicked off the season in sensational fashion, netting a dramatic brace in a 4-2 defeat at Liverpool, and with one of the best goals of the season so far, a solo effort which was nominated for Goal of the Month. And then he went on to get a goal as well against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now let's do some Champions League, where the exciting matches later tonight, as Bayern Munich would be hosting Chelsea in matchday 1 action. Now it is a repeat of the final some 13 years ago, and Harry Kane says that his side are hungry to start the season on a good note.
I feel like whenever we play against any team at the Allianz Arena, we back ourselves to beat anyone if we play to our ability. Depending on who's favourites, that's down to you guys to decide and the fans to decide. But of course, we feel confident in the way we're playing right now, and but also we know to beat Chelsea, we have to be at the highest level. They won the Club World Cup. They showed some great performances in that competition, and also in the Premier League. So we expect a tough game. There's some really good individual players, and yeah, this is the start of the Champions League, so it's going to be a great game under the lights in the Allianz Arena.
Well, that was Bayern Munich forward Harry Kane speaking. Let's now head to the opposite dugout, where Enzo Maresca will be leading Chelsea back to the Champions League, and he says that the match against Bayern should be an interesting one that they're looking forward to face.
But first of all, you know already since last season that I always like to go game by game. You cannot think about the final or semi-final if you are not able to win games in the group stage. And it's the first thing. Tomorrow we have the first one against a fantastic team that probably is one of the 3-4 favorite in this competition. But we're gonna try to do our job in the best way.
And so that was head coach of Chelsea, Enzo Maresca. Just to go through the full list of fixtures for the Champions League later tonight. There are already matches being played. Olympiacos are currently being held to a goalless draw home against Paphos, who are down to 10 men. Slavia Prague are leading Bodo Glimt by 1-0. However, the Swedish side have just been awarded a penalty. 54 minutes gone in both games. Later tonight at 7 p.m, Ajax return to Europe's elite competition when they welcome Inter Milan. Bayern Munich, as I mentioned, would face Chelsea, and Liverpool face Atletico Madrid in the repeat of the knockout fixture back in 2020. Paris Saint-Germain, who are the reigning champions, kick off their campaign against Ivan Juric's Atalanta. You can get updates of all these games and more on our social media handles at 3SportsGH. That's how we wrap up the sports segment and Hot Edition here on TFM 92.7. We'll be back again tomorrow at the same time to bring you the latest updates across Ghana and the continent and the world at large.